Why on earth would the United States veto a resolution that is calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and the immediate release, unconditional immediate release of all of the Israeli hostages? Well, it's pretty simple because that's not good for the military industrial complex. I'm Stuart Hooper, a lecturer in geopolitics. Please follow my page or subscribe, depending on if you are on X or YouTube. Hit like on this post, share it everywhere you possibly can, because I think this is a big part of the puzzle concerning US support for Israel that not enough people are currently talking about, because the US really did find itself out on a limb, along with the United Kingdom, of course, which abstained, which you could perhaps even make an argument is somewhat even worse than just saying, no, we don't want a ceasefire. It's just kind of just a turning a blind eye to all of it. Well, we're going to ignore that and look somewhere else, but that's kind of another issue for another day. But the US vetoed this resolution in the Security Council, which is really the only part of the United Nations that would have had any degree of potential success to do something about this crisis in Gaza, and the US said no. Russia, yes. China, yes. All of the other members, yes, again, except the United Kingdom. So the US really out on its own, but it is, once again, the military-industrial complex that we can point to and say that is probably the reason why the US just cannot bring itself to stop getting involved with foreign conflicts, wherever that may be. Israel, Iraq, Ukraine, Afghanistan, name your conflict. It's always the military-industrial complex that comes out on top. Now, you might be asking, well, how do we know this for sure? What exactly has gone on here? How can you say it's the military-industrial complex? Why is it not something else? Well, let's go and take a look, shall we? Let's go and take a look at precisely what has happened here. And then we're also going to look at some numbers which are not good in terms of democracy and the United States. So look closely at the date and time when this article was posted. December the 8th, 2023. At 6:09 p.m. Eastern, the US has vetoed a Gaza ceasefire resolution in the UN Security Council. And as we can see here, the Security Council vote on the resolution, backed by Arab states, had 13 in favor and 1 the US against, while the United Kingdom abstained. And of course, we have here the quote: "We propose language that would have reinforced the life-saving diplomacy we have undertaken since October 7th, increased opportunities for humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, encouraged the release of hostages and the resumption of humanitarian pauses, and laid a foundation for a durable peace," Robert Wood, the US representative, said. Unfortunately, nearly all of our recommendations were ignored. Well, that is, of course, what the US is arguing. But the real reason for this is what we can find right here. The State Department approves the sale of tank ammunition to Israel in a deal that bypasses Congress. And note the date and time of this article. 1:20 p.m. the very next day, December the 9th, 2023. The US and its government is not really concerned with human rights or democracy or making the world a better place. It's concerned with helping out those interests behind the scenes, the deep state, if you like, that are really calling the shots when it comes to the US government. Now, I have said again and again and again that Israel absolutely has a right to defend itself, that it suffered a terror attack, that Hamas is a terror group, and that everything that happened on October the 7th was a complete nightmare and a disaster for Israeli people generally. What Israel has done is not legitimate self-defense. There is no way that you can justify what they are doing in Gaza as legitimate self-defense. defense. And I actually think it's fair to say that what they are doing is ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Genocide? Probably not. I mean, it's really tough to meet the technical definition of what genocide really is in a legal sense. But ethnic cleansing, the forcible removal of one group of people of a specific race or religion from one area, pushing them somewhere else and not allowing them to come back, that is exactly what Israel is doing. And they're pushing them closer and closer and closer to the sea and to Egypt. And Egypt, of course, doesn't want them. So we have a US government that has essentially been captured by the military-industrial complex. And my PhD research is looking at this. Hopefully, early next year, I'll be able to share some of that stuff with you guys publicly. And you'll be able to see the intimate web of connections between all of these people in the big five industrial titans of the American military-industrial complex and secretaries of defense and NATO chiefs, and how all of these people are intimately connected across multiple different institutions, and they are all working in favor of the same outcome, which, for really want of a better term, is a globalist, imperialist foreign policy agenda, which establishes an empire in all but official status. That's really what is going on with this stuff. Now, let's return to that article on the sale of that tank ammunition, because let's just say that has some very interesting quotes in here. And if we scroll down to these few paragraphs right here, we can see the sale is worth $106.5 million, includes almost 14,000 anti-tank explosive devices. And this is all coming from US Army inventory, which is an important point because the US doesn't just sell stuff from its inventory and say, yeah, you know what, we made a bit of money on that and that's good. And I guess we can sit back on that now. No, what they're going to do is they're going to take that money and they're going to send it back into the arms manufacturers' coffers, and they're going to get more ammunition for the US Army to replenish those stocks. So you can't do that. You can't replenish the stocks unless they keep having a place that they need to be filtered out to, whether that be Ukraine or Israel or Afghanistan or Iraq. You see how this works? They need a conflict to keep funneling this ammunition into, so that they can have an excuse to replenish the stocks, send more money to the military-industrial complex, and around we go, and the world never experiences peace as a result. But the most important points on here are these other two paragraphs. Look at what this says here. Bypassing Congress with emergency determinations for arms sales is an unusual step that has in the past met resistance from lawmakers, as it should, I might add, who normally have a period of time to weigh on proposed weapon transfers and in some cases block them. In May of 2019, then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made an emergency determination for an $8.1 billion sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Jordan. Yeah, those havens of democracy, right? Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Jordan. I mean, are you kidding me? After it became clear that the Trump administration would have trouble overcoming lawmakers' concerns about the Saudi UAE-led war in Yemen. So the Trump administration is concerned that the Congress that represents the people might not want them to do something. So instead of thinking, you know what, maybe we should go ahead and pursue a policy that the people actually want us to do, instead of doing that, what they say is, well, forget about them, forget about Congress, forget about public opinion. We're just going to do whatever the hell we want. We're going to do whatever the hell the military-industrial complex wants. And we're going to keep these wars going as long as humanly possible. And we're going to bend every single rule in the book to be able to do it. It's insanity. And look at this poll. Just for some clarity on this, voters and the current conflict with Gaza and Israel, 61% of likely voters, including a majority of Democrats and independents and a plurality of Republicans, support the US calling for a permanent ceasefire and a de-escalation of violence in Gaza. And you can see all of the numbers here. So if you add up the people that strongly support or somewhat support, these are the numbers that you get to. You get a majority of people in the country want a ceasefire and a de-escalation. What is the US supposed to be? A democracy? Of, by, and for the people? Do we just forget that somewhere along the road? I mean, at what specific point did the US government transition to, we're just going to do whatever the hell we want, forget the people, we're going to pursue these policies that support our cronies in the military-industrial complex. Who cares if they're killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people in the aggregate over the decades that this has been done from? I mean, this is just unbelievable. For again, a country that wants to proclaim itself to be a democracy, to be free, just on that level, you would expect the government to then respond to what the people want, not to just say, well, screw the people, we're going to do whatever the hell we want anyway. So this is really going to show you that at least on the issue of foreign policy, there is a massive democratic deficit in the United States. And this is a huge issue. This is why people need to pay attention to global politics, pay attention to what the US government does in relation to foreign policy and the military-industrial complex. Because unless the people get a grip on this, this only leads in one direction, which is World War III. That's eventually where you're going to lead with this. If you want to keep selling weapons and creating conflicts and creating problems in a world that has a more powerful than ever Russia and China and places like Iran also now growing in their regional power, that only leads to regional, if not global, escalations. It leads to catastrophe. Thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed this new presentation style, those of you that are regular viewers. Experimenting with putting this together on Zoom. I'm going to play around with some other software, but I've now got a good setup here where I can bring these articles up, discuss them on the fly, and not have to go in and spend an hour, 2 hours editing together a 10 or 15-minute video, which I do not have time to do. I'm trying to finish a PhD, finals week for my students this past week, so I do not have time to edit. So would really appreciate you guys, again, sharing these videos everywhere you possibly can, hitting like, doing anything you can to help get these videos out into the algorithm, because especially on YouTube, X, really appreciate and love the growth and love on X. Thank you guys so much. But on YouTube, we're reaching a point of where it's almost not worth uploading videos. YouTube has completely throttled anything that criticizes a mainstream perspective, or specifically on this Israel conflict, or just a nuanced perspective, which I'm trying to provide here. So yeah, any help you guys can provide, really appreciate it. And I'll be back with more videos over the course of this week.